Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to show off a cool trick that you can use to make squelches a little bit more interesting. Often people just use a standard saw wave for the squelches, but I found a cool trick that you can use to make them slightly more interesting and slightly different than what you would normally have. So without further ado, let's get right into that. Alright, so as you can see here, we have a simple project where I've set up a final squelch as well as some of the things I used to make it. So let's actually listen to the end result first, so you guys can listen what this sounds like. And that's very aggressive, but there is also a somewhat less aggressive version of that with a slightly different waveform. So that sounds like this. Slightly less resonant and slightly more pleasing to the ear. But that being said, let's actually look at the patch itself. You can see we have some waveforms here that almost look like a saw wave. If we go into the individual harmonics, you can see that there's something going on here. They do follow the saw wave harmonic series, but obviously the volume difference is definitely present than from a normal saw wave. And the same can be said for the other one. As you can see, there's a slight difference here. There's a little bit more energy going up here. So actually, let's go into how I made these waveforms first. The patch itself, let's quickly go over it. It's not very interesting. We have a macro doing the bandpass here, and then we have the pitch bend going up and down, which kind of makes the melody, and those two together kind of form the tonality of it. No effects, and then it just goes through some stereo processing, a quick EQ. We have a compressor here, kind of turning up the volume together with this limiter and the saturator. And finally we have delay and reverb. So just a normal processing chain that you would expect on any sound. Nothing very interesting going on here in terms of like effects being used. So the main source out is really what it does it and what gives it that tone. So how I actually made those saw waves is with a different serum instance, and as you can see, this serum instance is just very simple. Again, we're just using this to generate a saw wave. I had a test between serum and operator to see which saw wave looks the cleanest, and they're both equally clean, so I decided to use serum. If I then ever need to do some more advanced stuff in here, then I don't have to replace the synth. So that's a useful thing. I always tend to use the same synth, and many of you know that I'm very familiar with serum. So that's what I use there. So with that being said, once we get out of serum, you can see that there's some cool EQing going on. And I actually first want to take a look at the MIDI real fast. And what you can see is that we're playing a note in F0 here. So the key is F. If we go to the key of F and we go 7 above that, so we'll start with F and then we'll go up 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. You can see that we're in the key of C up here. So with that in mind, let's look at the EQ again. And if we go back to it and open it up, you can actually see the key that we are down here. And you can see that all these boosts are happening in the key of C. So we're basically, again, this one is also in the key of C, as you can see. So that gives us a really cool tone to it with just this EQ. If we listen to that, you can hear what that sounds like. A very nice hollow sound, and you can already use this, render this out and use this for your squelch. But I kind of wanted to take it a little bit further and bring out these frequencies a bit more. So what I did is I added the saturator, and that really brings out those frequencies. And then I used some EQs here as well to just kind of invert these forms here. So these are at the same frequencies, and they're just making a dip where these boosts are, to kind of equalize it again as an actual equalizer. So that sounds like this. And finally we have a final clipper here to make sure that we are staying below 0. And then this is just an analyzer, which we're not really using to process the sound. So I made a few of these. I played around a little bit with maybe having some of the cuts being boost and some of the boost being cuts, and kind of match some of them together. And I came up with these two waveforms. And those two waveforms I can now use. I've saved them as actual wave files for Serum, and I can use them to make squelches and stuff like that. So let's quickly talk about importing them, because you cannot just save this file and import it in Serum in a nice way. You cannot like drag it from the playlist. You have to actually turn it into a wave file first. So this is saved somewhere, this file, but if you want to save it anywhere, what you can do is you can just drag it into the folder that you have, and it will create a project with a clip of that sample. And then you can take the actual wave file here, give the name cool wave, for example, and then you can drag that to wherever you want and then just delete the project. So that's an easy way to create wave files out of sounds that you have rendered in your playlist. And as I said, you cannot directly drag this into Serum. That will give you a file error. But once you actually have the file here, like we have this cool wave, you can actually do it. So to import it, what I've done is I've imported it with average pitch, because there's no pitch bend in it. We can use this and it will generate a nice waveform for us. And as you can see, it's slightly messed up and it's slightly out of phase. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to morph, and we're going to 0 all phases, and that's going to give us a nice waveform. And as you can see, this is a static wave. You can make some changes to it if you want, but now you can just save this as an actual waveform for Serum, as an actual wavetable, and just drop it in your users folder for Serum, and then you can use that to make squelches, and they will be slightly more interesting than if you were to use a normal saw wave, because everybody tends to use a saw wave. So this way you can make it slightly more interesting. I recommend you make a few of these waves yourself, so that you kind of get the hang of it, of how it works and what you can do with it. You can obviously experiment more. I've stick to just a saw wave and some EQing, but you can do a lot more processing on it if you want to. I don't know how well that will turn out, but I do recommend you make some of these waveforms yourself, so that you can make interesting sounds out of them. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to show off for today, and hopefully this inspires you to make something out of this. With that being said, that's going to be it for today. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like, and if you're new here, feel free to subscribe. The channel has been growing amazingly lately, which is nice to see that you're still interested and that you keep subscribing. I believe that from all my views, almost 50% of you have subscribed, and that's a very high rate for YouTube. Normally that's more at 30 to 35%. So that's really nice to see that I have a fan base that keeps on subscribing and keeps on coming to my channel and actually view the stuff that I put out. So thank you all for that. And with that being said, bye bye.